you. Hi, everyone. Welcome to TNDC's 41st anniversary celebration. We're celebrating the future of supportive housing and equitable community building. My name is Katie Lamont. I know many of you already, and I'm excited to be here in front of you in a new role. I'm our new Chief Operating Officer, having transitioned from leading. Thank you. Oh wait, I can take this off, I forgot. COVID is like running through both my children's schools, so that's why we'll have it on most of the time. So anyway, many of you know me in my previous role as the director of the Housing Development Department. I've been here for 10 years, and I'm really excited to be here for however many more in this new role. It's a real joy and honor to be here with you today in person and celebrating TNDC and our 41st anniversary, and especially during Affordable Housing Month. Together, with your partnership and generosity, we've provided opportunities to so many incredible families, immigrants, seniors, and people from all walks of life who have faced barriers to housing and having their voices heard. Everyone, all of you in this room, are part of TNDC's mission to build affordable housing, supportive housing, and community. Thank you for being here and for being part of our work. I'd like to give a special thank you to our skyscraper sponsors, Cahill Contractors and Swinnerton Construction. We've been with Cahill for a long time now, and we're completing 681 Florida in the Mission, a partnership with Meta, as we speak. And with Swinnerton, we're building TNDC's largest, tallest, biggest, all of the things, family housing in Soma, and we're really excited to have your partnership there. Today, we're celebrating these homes and 41 years of TNDC, and we're also looking ahead to the future of the affordable housing movement. And to that end, we've brought together a variety of esteemed partners to reflect and envision how our work will grow, intersect, and become more equitable. To get us started, I'd like to introduce you all to the newest addition to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, Supervisor Matt Dorsey, representing District 6.
Thanks so much, everybody. So my name is Matt Dorsey, and I want to tell you a little story about the sort of personal journey that led me to ask Mayor Breed to consider me for the vacancy on the Board of Supervisors that former Supervisor Matt Haney left when he went to the Assembly. It started about, one of the influential moments was about 6 months ago. There was a community-based rally in Civic Center. It was a Saturday afternoon, I believe, and there were families who came to City Hall to petition their local government about street conditions and safety, and it was in English and in Spanish and in Chinese and in Arabic. Now, I am no newcomer to San Francisco politics. I've been here since my first job out of college was working for Arlo Smith, the former district attorney, in 1990. But what I saw 6 months ago was something that was organic and authentic and moving, and it was led by, in large part, by TNDC. Those families were incredibly influential in ways that they may not know on Mayor London Breed's thinking when she led the way on the Tenderloin Emergency Initiative. And what Mayor Breed did was inspirational to me. Now, I have known Mayor London Breed for a long time. We have a complicated history in some ways. But I also have a personal history as somebody who is in recovery. I spent most of my adult life in recovery. I identify as an addict and as an alcoholic. And in the last 2 years in the police department, one of the tough roles that I have to do is I'm on a monthly call of how many people died of drug overdoses in the last month. For many of the people that I worked with, the reporters and also members of the police department, people from Department of Public Health, from the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, I think there was a feeling of just helplessness. And all of us thinking, this is really, we need a political solution because we've got great police and great public health and great nonprofit partners, housing. So that's why I did it. And I will always remember how moving it was to me, and I hope everybody knows how moving it was to the mayor and to this city. The voices of those families that started this. So I think, if the day ever comes that I regret this, I'm going to blame some people at TNDC, I think. But it's going to be everything I can do to make sure that we don't regret it. And all the things that we want to accomplish on saving lives and getting people onto the other side of their addictions, all of that it's so foundational that we make sure that we're doing everything we can on affordable housing. So I really want to be a partner on the Board of Supervisors. I know that there was a time when the Tenderloin was going to be in my district or not. One thing I have made a commitment to, and I've had a conversation with my colleague Dean Preston about, I want to make sure that I am the best supervisor that Tenderloin never elected, and I want Dean Preston to be the best supervisor Selma never elected. I think there's a lot of issues we're going to be joined at the hip on. So I want to make sure that we're working together and serving the community well. I look forward to talking to everybody over this, and thanks so much for the opportunity to be here. Thanks.
Thank you, Supervisor Dorsey. TNDC does have 9 buildings in Soma and Mission Bay, so you will still be our representative. Now I'd like to introduce someone I've had the privilege of working with every day for the last year and a half. None other than TNDC's Chief People Officer, Diane Hefner. Since she joined in November 2020, Diane's played a key role in helping TNDC navigate the pandemic in a way that prioritizes staff and our community. And I know many of you in your own roles have navigated this huge, heavy lift without guidance or clear guidance, a huge accomplishment. She's a spirited leader, and I'm excited for you to get to know her better today. Here's Diane.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Katie. I have to say it's been a pleasure working with Katie. Her passion for affordable housing and her day-to-day way of challenging us at TNDC is something that I truly appreciate. Also want to take a moment and thank my CEO, Murillo, our new bigger-than-life, spirited Commander-in-Chief. I have the pleasure and honor of serving as Chief People Officer at TNDC. So what that means is I'm typically at home. I'm typically inside the organization, really focused on the health of our organization. I don't get out a whole lot. But it was very important for our leader to make sure that the entire executive leadership team was here. I appreciate his vision and his passion and his hard work, so thank you, Murillo. I'm also honored that you guys are here today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the support that you provided to TNDC. We really, really, truly appreciate it. I was drawn to TNDC because I grew up in a single-family household with 5 children. My mother was a single parent because our fathers were either incarcerated or just didn't have the capacity to raise children after the divorce. It was very, very difficult. My mother struggled with substance abuse, drug addiction, domestic violence. And then when you couple poverty and a lack of job opportunities, it made growing up really, really tough, really hard. And then one day, she met someone that introduced her to someone that worked at an affordable housing organization. And that organization, within 1 year, placed us in a home. Not just a home, but it gave us a foundation. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was 14 years old. And it was a new project that was being built. And I think we drove over there like 3 times a week after school just to make sure it was real, just to make sure it was still ours. And I also remember that it wasn't just a house, it was our home. It was our kitchen. It was our bathroom. It was my bedroom. I think I stayed in the bathroom for 2 hours the first day, right? When you bounce around from house to house, you've got like 10 minutes in the bathroom, right? And you got to get out. So there was things that I just remember about it so much. And so what TNDC does really, really resonated with me. The idea in the vision that housing should be a human right. I didn't really understand that at 14. I just knew it felt really darn good to have our own house, our own apartment, our own place to live. And so that's why I'm here. That's why I chose TNDC, because the mission and the work that they do really hits home for me as a person, as an individual. So I don't have the pleasure of being out on the ground with our amazing team. First of all, can we just take a moment and acknowledge our people, our staff at TNDC? Guys, can you stand up if you're not standing already? There they are. At TNDC, we believe that our success is driven through our people. They're our number one priority, because we couldn't do what we do if it wasn't for them. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. But it's been a wonderful journey. I want to also just thank you guys for being here. Thank you for your commitment to this city. Thank you for your commitment to the children, to the families who are blessed to be able to have housing because of your support. And then thank you for being here today. And thank you for helping us to celebrate our 41st anniversary. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Our next speaker is from our closest partner, the Mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development. Its director, Eric Shaw, unfortunately is sick today. We wish him a full recovery, and we're so grateful to have Lydia Ely here with us to not replace him, speak for him, speak for MOCD. I hope I don't embarrass you with this, but I recently learned the coolest thing about Lydia, which is that she founded the Street Sheet. And she threatened to take it off her resume. I said, no, you cannot. That is so cool. And I think that says a lot about who you are. And thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you, Katie. That was very many years ago. It was 1990. I was 7 years old when I founded the Street Sheet. No, I mean, I was working back in the Tenderloin back then, and that's when I first became aware of TNDC. So yeah, sorry Eric couldn't come today, but this is exciting to celebrate with you all, and it's nice to see some old friends and new faces today. So yeah, TNDC, 1981. So maybe that math is wrong because it's the 41st. Oh no, that math is right. Yeah, I'm really good with the numbers. So yeah, starting back in 1981, a single rundown, I hope that's an okay word to use, residential hotel acquisition. From that moment, TNDC's come from that moment to become our largest community-based development organization in San Francisco. So TNDC now operates 44 buildings across 7 neighborhoods, so we're no longer just TNDC, but obviously maintaining deep roots in the neighborhood where it all started. So our mission at MOCD, and this you will find on our website, is to support San Franciscans with affordable housing opportunities and essential services to build strong communities. So that also means partnering with organizations like TNDC that are dedicated at their core to neighborhood engagement and also racial justice. So with support from MOCD and other public resources, and many of you in this room, TNDC has been able to offer permanent stability, safe, decent, affordable housing for many, many vulnerable people in San Francisco. Our partnership with TNDC, and we had to go back into the vaults to get this, I was rummaging around the Dead Sea Scrolls. 40 projects over the years, 40 projects, 3,900 affordable housing units, and here's the big one, $800 million in city funds are invested in TNDC-led projects. So this is a point of pride, I think, for all of us, and dedicates everyone's mutual commitment to this important work. We also have 9 projects that are currently under development with TNDC. That's almost 1,000 more units that are in the pipeline. today. So that's fantastic. Some of those, yeah. And these are all beautiful projects. I mean, these are brochure-worthy projects. We have senior housing at 4200 Geary, which is District 1. We have the project that Katie mentioned under construction. I rode my bike by 5th and Howard, now called 921 Howard. Sat waiting for its moment for like 13 years, and it's under construction. It's going to be fantastic. 681 Florida, in the heart of the mission with Meta. 78 Haight, which just started construction, incredible, formerly known as Parcel U in the Central Freeway District, and this is for transition-aged youth, fantastic project. And then a new project still in kind of its more feasibility stages at 266 4th Street, which is right at Folsom, over the new Central Subway station that's opening this fall. So these are high-profile, beautiful projects. We're so pleased to be partners with TNDC. We're committed, to keeping support for any organization that shares the values that I mentioned. We applaud TNDC for all these successful years in building community and creating inclusion, and giving residents and all residents of their buildings and of the neighborhood an opportunity to thrive. Under Mayor Breed's leadership, we're going to continue to develop high-quality homes across the city, and really focusing on her homelessness recovery plan. A lot of that work is happening in the Central City right now. As everyone knows, our work is really about relationships. There's so many challenges to the work. It's not straightforward. It's especially in San Francisco. So, TNDC's approach of inclusion, including residents, advocates, fellow organizations in the Tenderloin, elected representatives, lenders, investors, builders, all of you, critical for TNDC's success and also for the city's success. We can't do this work without you. We can't meet our housing goals without you. So we're proud to be part of this great history, and we congratulate you on 41 years and looking forward to the next 41. Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia. I realize in my haste I failed to say you led the city through RAD, and now you're leading the city team through everything. Thank you. RAD is the Rental Systems Demonstration Program. I'm learning to spell acronyms. And I'll spell yours. So I'm excited to introduce our next speaker, Cindy Wu, the Executive Director of LISC, the Local Initiative Support Corporation. And in her current role, she mobilizes funds, deepens capacity, and advocates for change across the entire region. And the LISC's goal here is to create abundant housing, vibrant local businesses, thriving families, and a more just Bay Area. Before her time at LISC, Cindy was the deputy director at our sister agency, Chinatown CDC, and we're also partnering with them, and I see Joanna Ladd here in the audience. Thank you for being here. So she knows just how critical the work of a group like TNDC that's community-based is. Here's Cindy.
Thanks, Katie. Big congratulations to TNDC, Murillo, Katie, all the staff and the board. It's just great to see this organization thrive for 41 years. You mentioned CCDC. I see many of my friends here. Great to see you. So for those who don't know, I was there for 13 years. And when I learned about the emergence of CCDC, it really went hand in hand with the emergence of TNDC, coming out of civil rights era fights, coming out of the fight for ethnic studies at San Francisco State. I did a little stint on the Planning Commission, so some nerdy Planning Commission stuff is that the downtown plan was created in the 1980s, but at the same time, the neighborhood plans were created. So the importance of the Tenderloin, the importance of Chinatown, the importance of the Mission, those were codified at the same time. And I think that speaks to what I learned from the streets of Chinatown, what I bring to LISC now, which is that self-determination in neighborhoods, the ability for people to name their own dreams, achieve those dreams. That's really what the core of community development work is. I also came to LISC really because of friendship, mentorship, community, and that's also what I have experienced with TNDC all these years. Margaret G. was a mentor of mine. She was the ED and previously the deputy director at LISC for many years. And it's all these people, it's all this community that sort of raised us to be here in community development. LISC's partnership with TNDC has been about some technical details, HUD Section 4 funding, pre-development finance, but it's also been about building this world of leadership for affordable housing, community development, economic development. We send folks through our Housing Development Training Institute every year. I think that TNDC, everyone calls me all year and it's like, when is the next class happening? When's the next class happening? So happy to see your folks there. At LISC, we really hope to be this connective tissue between advocates, practitioners, investors, government, philanthropy, business, and being at this intersection of how capital flows is really being at the intersection also about how power flows. And I think that trying to bring a lens of justice to that, sharing power, giving up power, really making it more equitable access to capital and access to power. The hope is really for everyone to have a safe, healthy place where they feel like they have agency and they feel included. We all know about the challenge of the housing crisis. We all know about the challenge of displacement. Nowhere is that more just so visible than in San Francisco. We're all here to work on the decades of disinvestment that have happened and to change these top-down approaches, and I'm really excited to have TNDC as a partner in that, to think about how to bring prosperity to the hands of all people, especially focusing on people of color and communities that haven't had that kind of investment. I've been thinking a lot about, it's not just working in service of equity, it's how can we be equity? How can we embody it? Every single decision we make, every single decision that gets made at a place like a LISC or like a TNDC, who we work with, who we partner with, I think that really speaks to our values. And so just really grateful and excited to be here with all of you, with TNDC, so that we can build this ecosystem together to really start to dream for the new Bay Area, dream for a place where everyone can have prosperity and everyone can stay and make this their home. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. And I'm a proud graduate of the HDTI, Housing Development Training Institute, Lydia too. And then Emily Lynn here in the audience, when I met her in that training program, she was at TNDC, and I think ultimately is one of the many reasons I came to TNDC. We have a couple alumni in the audience, so thank you all for being here. Last but not least, I would like to introduce you to TNDC CEO, Maurilio Leon, who brings with him a wealth of experience in public and private organizations, including most recently Community Housing Opportunities Corporation, also the City and County of San Francisco, the Federal Reserve Bank, and the Unity Council. He brings an abundance of empathy and vision to TNDC's work, which I so appreciate, and I know you will too. Here's Maurilio.
Buenos dias. I feel like we need a little bit of soul, so I will ask you to stand and do a little bit of stretching, please. Yes, there it is. Great stretch, supervisor. It's very inspirational. Thank you, everyone. I felt like we needed that. Thanks again for being here today. I will first and foremost say you all look beautiful. It's important to gather. It's a human element. And we haven't done it as often and as frequent as we should for obvious reasons. But I'm glad you're here today. I know we were expecting others to join us. And in that spirit, we welcome them as well. And I'm really glad that everyone is here. As Katie mentioned, my name is Maurilio Leon, and I am the new CEO of TNDC. Before I begin, it's just really important for me, as I begin this journey as a CEO, to really acknowledge the board of directors for TNDC. They have been both inspirational, they have been a resource, they have been just a steadfast support of this organization, our collective leadership, and I would really like to acknowledge them. So please stand, our board of directors. You know who you are, don't be bashful. Thank you very much. You make today happen, and I'm very grateful for your leadership and guidance. We've acknowledged staff, but I would in particular like to acknowledge our fund development staff. They have played a really important role in how TNDC is experienced over the last particular 3 weeks. They have done a groundbreaking, a ribbon cutting, and now an anniversary celebration. So fund development staff, please raise your hands. I know they're probably in the elevator and elsewhere trying to get things prepared, but I just would love to acknowledge them as well. As I begin, my heart is still heavy with what happened in Buffalo, New York. We should not feel unsafe going to grocery stores. We should not feel unsafe going to schools. And we should not feel unsafe going to places of worship. And as a person of color, that feeling sometimes doesn't go away, it just lessens. Black Lives Matter. Stop Asian hate. And let's not separate children from families. We need to stand against racism in its many iterations. I would like to just take a few seconds to be with that community, those individuals that have gone through a really, really tough time. So I'll just be 2 seconds and I will continue forward. Thank you. While we have challenges, and we feel them, and I feel them, and I feel like I just pulled a John Bayer right now, we also have blessings. We have stories of success, and we have stories of accomplishments and transformation. And TNDC is at that forefront. We are transforming communities. We are creating both opportunities and sanctuary for individuals, children, families. And more importantly, we are creating safety for communities. A safety that is called a vibrant community and a home. And for that, I'm very thankful to be at TNDC. And I'm very honored to be among great leadership and really inspirational colleagues. So thank you, all TNDC staff. Thank you, all TNDC board. Thank you, all TNDC leadership. We can clap. While I know some of you in the audience very well, others I've been meeting for the first time today, and still others I really am excited to get to know you a little better. My journey to TNDC has been very dynamic. I grew up as a migrant in a migrant farm working family, which means that, and I don't like to define migrant farm working family, but I will do so anyhow, which means that we traveled on farm working seasons throughout the state of California. And we started, you start in certain states and it's really predictable where you're gonna end up next according to the season and according to the fruits in season, according to the nuts in season, according to just the agricultural cycle and timeline. My family was those families that you see even currently when you drive down corridors of freeways and country roads that are to your right and to the left, right? They generally have big hats. And they're out there working. And really in the cold of the winter, in the hot of the summer. And that was my family. We worked hard, we worked long, we started early, we went late. And I really encourage you, like I do to this day, to recognize that community. Honk, wave. I tell you that because it matters. It matters to be seen, and it matters to be recognized, and I hope it's appreciative aspect of these are the community that help feed us. And so for that, I'm always indebted to my parents and my experience because it humbles me often and frequently, and it also centers me on the work. My parents ended up on a farm up in Chico, California, which is roughly 2.5, 3 hours north of San Francisco. And we were really appreciative of that opportunity because it allowed us not to travel up and down the state or even in neighboring states. And not having having the opportunity to not travel meant that I could actually go to school at the same school year after year. And it also meant that we no longer had to live in our car. The challenge then became housing. Right? The challenge became housing. My parents are illiterate, couldn't read a lease, couldn't sign a lease. And eventually, a drafty mobile home became our home. 6 of us and 750 square feet. I say this, and I mention this, because my experience allows me to be humble. My experience allows me to ask more questions than provide answers. And my experience allows me to feel what some of our families, children, and community in San Francisco and throughout the country are experiencing now. Housing insecurity, right? The hardships of poverty, and very importantly, the psychological effects of poverty on children that we don't talk about often and frequent. But that experience, there's a highlight. And the highlight is that I know what quality programming can do. I understand what 4 walls and a ceiling mean. And with bold leadership, we can change outcomes for families. We can produce opportunities for children, and we can create strong communities for everyone. As we gather here today, I welcome you to join us in discussing how we can advance supportive housing and build equitable communities together. It is no secret that San Francisco is among the most unaffordable places on earth. Of the many individuals who call San Francisco home, thousands face insurmountable challenges. Food, health, access, basic resources, and in particular, communities of color in particular women-led households, our seniors, people with disabilities, and our hardworking families that just want an opportunity for their children. TNDC has supported this community. TNDC has raised the hand of service for this community. And we continue to do so day in and day out. As was mentioned earlier, we started as a renovation project on a single room occupancy, otherwise known as the acronym SRO. We've now grown into 44 buildings across San Francisco, providing homes to over 6,100 people. But more importantly, they're not homes. They're vibrant communities. At TNDC, we want children, families, and individuals to thrive and communities to be vibrant. In the next few years, we will be reaching over 10,000 residents, 56 buildings, and many of which you can see through that exit of what that community is intended to look like. We remain focused on reimagining community outcomes that are both transformative and revitalizing. We work to meet people. This is very important. We work to meet people where they are at. And we generate innovative ideas that can move our communities forward and upward. Already, in my short time, and even as Diane and Katie's leadership has been proven, in terms of focusing on organizational impact and awareness for us, looking at how we can expand access by approaching community-centered issues through a racial and equity lens, which is critically important. TNDC is about cultural humility. And within this work, we aim to educate ourselves in the process and others on our core values and elevating our community process and impact. But more importantly, we need to work together. And I really, really sincerely mean that, because as our speakers have mentioned prior, in collaboration, we find strength. And in partnership, we find innovation. And that's one of the pillars of TNDC's To Transform Communities process. That is our secret sauce. Please don't tell anyone. As we continue our anniversary in celebration today, let's challenge ourselves to move beyond the traditional scope of how we define affordable housing, supportive housing, and even equity itself. While we commemorate our successes over the last 41 years, TNDC wants to work in collaboration with all of you, and I really mean that, all of you in this room, to reimagine the next 41 years. So thank you. The other magical portion about me is I clap for myself, so that's a common occurrence. We will now switch over to our fireside chat, except without the fire, right? You'll hear from Lydia, Cindy, and myself answer specific questions on the future of affordable housing, equitable community building. Again, I cannot overemphasize enough, thank you everyone for being here today. Thank you, Supervisor, for joining us, for your kind words. We will move the podium and we will have a quick discussion. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to ask each of the speakers just 2 questions. I'm going to start with Lydia. Lydia, what do you see as the opportunities today around building more affordable and sustainable housing in San Francisco?
Is this working? Yes. So, of course, we can't do it alone here in San Francisco. We have to rely on federal and state partners, and right now is the moment for that we've been waiting for. The state budget is live. The governor released his May revised last Friday. Lots of opportunity for new programs in this time of a historic-sized budget surplus. So we're out there fighting, as many of you are, to make sure funds are coming to support projects, particular projects that have been kind of stalled out for the last couple of years. So there's a lot of opportunity there. Also on the federal level, the president is holding a webinar today or tomorrow announcing a bunch of new federal initiatives. And locally, the mayor's budget goes in June 1, and then July 1 we'll have a budget for next year. We're all firing on all cylinders, trying to get our pipeline moving forward, find new funds out there, and reactivate some of our programs like the Small Sites program, which acquires existing buildings out in community, naturally occurring affordable housing, and makes sure that it's available for the long term. But locally, I think, we are so blessed to have a board of supervisors that without exception, every single member is a champion for affordable housing. Where else do you find that? We have a mayor who's a national leader on affordable housing, and all of us as voters, we've supported a $600 million bond a year and a half ago. We're going to go in for another bond on the ballot in a couple of years. We have all hands on deck here in San Francisco. We have huge allies and boosters in the state assembly, state senate, Nancy Pelosi's in Washington. So we have the key relationships that we need to keep the momentum going and keep our pipeline. We have 11,000 units in our pipeline. It's one stage of development or another. And we're cranking out about 1,000 units a year. We need to do more, we know that. And with your partnership and all those relationships I mentioned, we're looking forward to stepping it up.
That's great. Thank you, Lydia. And now for you, Cindy. As we know, May is Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. How important is cultural humility and understanding of cultural background in delivering services to clients and residents?
Thanks, Katie. I think probably all TNDC staff know that answer really well also. In my time at CCDC, I saw my coworkers, those that provided resident services, those that provided housing counseling, really understand, I think, creating a culture of belonging. So there's the literal language. Do you speak Cantonese? Do you speak Mandarin? Do you speak Spanish? Do you speak Arabic? But then there's a translation of technical language into language that people can understand how their everyday lives are impacted. And I think that in the broader picture of cultural competency, that's really important for practitioners to understand too, to understand what the daily life of someone living in an SRO upstairs, coming downstairs to buy groceries, having to walk through traffic to get to your school, just understanding what people do day in and day out for the design of either affordable housing or our parks or our transit system. I think that cultural competency is just being able to see the experience of others and not just of oneself. And so then having this diversity in design is how we build communities, physical spaces, and emotional spaces for everyone to be welcomed.
Thank you, Cindy. That was a super thoughtful response. Murillo, you're next. So, TNDC has experienced some recent changes in the organization. What's your vision for the future of TNDC with regard to supportive housing and community development?
Was that for me? I'm kidding.
That's for you.
I'm very excited, as I mentioned in speaking just a few minutes ago. To Cindy's point, I'm excited because we're going to be living, and we have but more intentionally, we begin living what equity actually means. I'm very proud, and this is something that I yell actually to people, is that the senior leadership at TNDC, with the exception of myself, is women and women of color. I say that because it's an important aspect of how we see equity. We can talk about it, and we should, because it's important, but we also have to live it, and we are, which is even more dynamic. And that's something that I'm really intent to carry, because it's not just one and done, right? It's a process, it's an intention, and it's a deliberate decision that we as leaders have to make to ensure that equity actually is alive and well and thriving. With that being said, it's also looking at the pledge that we have made to the city. It's re-examining the pledge we have made to community to really be transformative. One of the exciting aspects that I have is that I'm able to understand, both from experience perspective and also from an academic perspective, of some of the challenges and some of the outcomes that housing has had on communities of color. Intentional outcomes, systematic outcomes that we need to push against and that we need to reform so that communities can actually be really vibrant, right? And I said a little bit about, we need to stand against racism and all the iterations. And part of that is in policy. We have the team to take that challenge on. And I'm really excited for that. That's going to be TNDC 2.0. And it's going to be a journey for us. But it's going to be a journey that we actually walk in equity, speak truth, in collaboration and partnership, because we want systems to change, because we want to really serve community better in a genuine way. And so for me, it's also asking our partners to help us along, to remind us of our commitments, to remind us and be a support, because we won't, certain things we will not get right, and other things we will. But to me, it's important to begin that journey. I'm excited to begin the journey here at TNDC, and we will be on this journey for a very, very long time.
Thank you, Murillo. Now for you, Lydia. The mayor's office, there was just an article in the Chronicle earlier this week, recently announced the results of the latest point-in-time count, which showed significant progress in decreasing San Francisco's unhoused population. Do you see this trend continuing, and how are city investments working?
I wish I had a crystal ball. I really hope that trend continues. The mayor, under the mayor's leadership during COVID, the city housed, I think, 4,000 people who had been homeless outside or in shelters, and gave them, in most cases, hotel rooms. And over the last year or so, the city's been dedicating a huge amount of energy and cash to acquiring more housing that can be, that those folks can move into permanently. And I think we've already identified over 600 acquired over 600 units for different folks. And that's a really quick timeline. And those of you who do development know that, pre-development's 3 years. And if you're doing construction, that's another couple. So the fact that we could get that many units online in that short a time is phenomenal. And again, thank you to the voters for supporting the recovery bond that made a lot of that work possible. Also the Prop C, Our City, Our Home ballot initiative from a number of years back. It's our practice at MoCD to include a set aside of 20 to 25% of all units in every project for people experiencing homelessness, whether it's seniors or families or single individuals. And we will continue to do that thanks mostly to the availability of general funds to pay an operating subsidy, to pay for the cost of housing those folks when they're, given how low their incomes are. That is a very unusual program. Most places around the country, they rely on the Section 8 program, which is tiny. And in San Francisco, we've essentially rolled out our own Section 8 program for homeless people. And it's, I think we're up to 1,500 units, and again, adding units every year. That is a huge commitment of general funds into, essentially into perpetuity. And it shows the city's commitment to real housing first solutions, and we'll keep doing that. We also have a number of 100% homeless projects in the pipeline. TNDC is the lead on one of those down on Harrison Street, and we work with Homeless Department in partnership to do joint projects with them whenever we can.
Thank you, Lydia. And now for Cindy. How do you see LISC innovating to create deeper partnerships across the whole Bay Area region? This is another part that's actually different entirely. It's like, how do you envision leading the organization forward as a woman of color?
So I joined LISC March 2020, so month 1 of the pandemic. We were 3 staff at the time, and now we're 11. So it's been 2 years of really focusing on building a team, a diverse team, a team that can care for each other, but we had to do it over video chat. And everything that we've all been going through, right? Pandemic, racial reckoning, violence, war. And so how do we build a community of joy and love? That feels like I'm like being my hippie self. But how do we do that and do this work? I think if we don't have this way of feeding ourselves, then we can't do the work. So I'm figuring it out one step at a time. I'll say in terms of innovation, Lydia, you mentioned the Small Sites program. I've got my eye on the foreclosure, it's FIPP, F-I-H-P-P. It's a preservation program, so buying up buildings that are between 1 to 25 units at risk of foreclosure, but advocating hard. The guidelines are going to come out this week. This is turning into a pitch. To make the definition of at risk of foreclosure quite broad so that we can do some of the great work across the whole state that San Francisco's been doing in terms of small sites preservation. I think when we think about the 3 Ps, that preservation, all 3 are needed, but preservation is the one that allows people to keep living where they've been living, to make these homes feel secure to them, not fearing eviction every day, not fearing displacement every day. So I think those are the kind of bold programs that we really want to be part of. We're so lucky to be working in the Bay Area. There's so many developers, policy folks. There's such a rich ecosystem of people already. We really want to be implementers that are at that intersection of everyone uplifting these values.
Thank you, Cindy. Okay, now Murillo. Dignity and agency are core pillars. Let me say that again. Dignity and agency are core pillars of our work here at TNDC. What kind of services help people to achieve these ideals?
Part of that success is really meeting where community is and understanding those. So critical to that is the listening campaign and really an understanding campaign. I think when you see these, these are really glossy words, right? Dignity, right? What the heck does that mean? But I think it means, in many ways, it's a self-defined process that we need to allow community to really ground themselves, right? And make decisions for themselves and allow them the autonomy and the opportunity to achieve their own success. For us, I think as a TNDC organization, is to provide those opportunities. To see our communities and to see our buildings and to see our partnership as really setting the groundwork for people to define that opportunity for themselves. That to me is dignity. If they want to be engineers, fantastic. They want to join the trades? Let's do it. They want to be authors and actors and writers? Let's provide that. So we have a responsibility to ensure that people define those words for themselves in our communities, and especially our children. Part of the global vision that I have for TNDC over the coming years is to really be known and seen and felt as a gateway of opportunity for children and families. And that everyone will be able to write their own story and book. It's very hard. It's very hard because of all the challenges that we have. But I really believe that in a partnership model, in a really collaborative space, as we embark on this work and journey to come with our authentic selves, is just critically important to achieve those foundational opportunities for children and families in San Francisco. So it's not so much a definition of what those words mean, but it's an opportunity for people to define them for themselves in the families and in service that we do. You know, part of the aspect, people have asked me, oh, you know, you're serving community. We're actually enhancing San Francisco. And I say that intentionally, and the city knows this, because diversity is a strength. Children should play with other children of all incomes, of all sizes and shapes, of all ethnicities, because it makes us better. It really does. And when I look at our portfolio and when I look at our service, we are providing that dignity for a very diverse demographic here in San Francisco, and I'm really proud of that. I really am. And that is dynamic. And I will say this again, we couldn't do it without everyone in this room. And with that is our celebration, right? This is an anniversary. We should be ecstatic. And I know we have masks, but even then, we should still be ecstatic. So I thank you all. I think I jumped a little bit of the program, but I'll do it anyway. So back to you, Katie.
Now that you did it. Yeah, just thank you, Murillo. Thank you, Lydia. Thank you, Cindy, for being here. Thank you, all of you. And now you're supposed to close it out.
Okay, now it's my turn again. Sorry. I have glasses, so that's my excuse. Katie, thank you for emceeing. Lydia, Cynthia, thank you for being here today with us. I will say this very briefly. I know we're trying to get in shape for the summer. So with that being in mind, in the room right just, actually as you entered, there are some heavy hors d'oeuvres. So please help yourselves. Would love to continue this conversation there. Thank you all for really supporting TNDC. I look forward to meeting all of you. I really do mean that, all of you. And we will make the time to be able to do that. Thank you for your support and your generosity, your wisdom and your advice. We're here to listen. This is a little different than our previous anniversaries. We don't have chicken. And if we do, it's much better than the cold stuff in previous years, right? So please help us celebrate for the next hour and a half. Again, thank you so much for your support. It really means a lot to us, your generosity, and you just love us. And I just want to say thank you. So thank you.